Inside the NFL. The Dallas Cowboys sent a message to the rest of the league not to count them out. We profiled the Bills' Bruce Smith, who ended months of contract talks and was convicted of drunk driving in a tumultuous week. Running back Eddie George brought his talents to Tennessee. He joins us on NFL Crosstalk. And a look back at one of the greatest players of all time, Chicago Bears running back Walter Payton. And now, through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the show the pros watch, Inside the NFL, with your hosts, Len Dawson, Nick Bonacotti, Chris Collinsworth, and Jerry Glanville.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first show of the season. And as I look around, I see that Jerry, Chris, and Nick are fired up and ready to go in the 21st consecutive season that Inside the NFL has been on HBO. You know, Jimmy Carter was president when this show started.
Yeah, and interest rates are 18%. But you've been sitting in that chair for 20 years, Lenny, and as I look around, I don't see any gray hairs in that head.
Well, you've been there for 19 years, and I see a lot of gray hairs in your head. You know, Chris has been here 9 years, right, and he is no longer a rookie. I'm talking about Jerry Glanville, but how are you going to avoid the sophomore jinx?
The sophomore jinx for me, Lenny, I'd probably have a better record. I'm going to have a lot of improvement on my picks. In fact, I look for a mass improvement.
You better go to mass to improve on your picks. And don't hit me anymore this year. You did that all year last year.
Forget about that. He'll be pounding you all year long. You know, a ton of surprises occurred in the very first week of the National Football League, but it did not surprise me when the Cowboys went to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. They indoctrinated quarterback Cordell Stewart into what it's like in the National Football League. They threw a ton of coverages, a ton of surprises and blitzes at him. He looked like he was completely confused, and with a bum knee, he's just an ordinary quarterback in the NFL.
Well, let's see him against somebody other than the Dallas Cowboys before we run him out of the league. That Dallas team looked absolutely awesome against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Last season, a disaster off the field. They never got their focus back on the field, and I had almost forgotten how much pure talent there is on the Dallas Cowboys football team. The Green Bay Packers, I thought coming into the season, really didn't have much competition, but after Sunday watching the Cowboys, you better believe they've got a little competition.
Well, Chris, I'm not about to put the Jets in the class of the Dallas Cowboys, but I will say this much. Their head coach, Bill Parcells, all he knows how to do is win wherever he goes. When he's with the Giants, Otis Anderson, he ran the football. When he goes to New England, he has Bledsoe and Martin. He mixes it up. And this year during preseason, he found out, wow, I got Crabette, I got Johnson, I got O'Donnell. I'm throwing that football. 5 touchdown passes against Seattle. The Jets, right, the Jets are back.
The bandwagon, baby. Make room for Nick.
He's back in New York, but you talk about Parcells. He left a pretty good team in New England, and what New England did, they added 2 linemen. They added Zephros Moss, offensive tackle, and Henry Thomas, a defensive tackle, and the Patriots now are better than they've ever been.
Let's talk about chemistry, because we know how important chemistry is to a football team, and I think a team right now that is really hurting in that department is the San Francisco 49ers. They lose Jerry Rice for the entire season, Steve Young in the first week, yet another concussion.
But I thought the problems for the 49ers really went back to this offseason. When they made the decision to let George Seifert go, really force him out the door and bring in Steve Mariucci. Now, Mariucci may be a fine coach, I don't know. But I do know that that was the most successful franchise over the past 15, 16 years, from Bill Walsh to George Seifert. Then they just got rid of everybody. The assistants, the head coach started all over, and the results showed that first weekend.
And you're talking about chemistry. We all like the Carolina Panthers. In just a short time, they became a real contender. And chemistry, they let Kevin Green go. Here's the heart and soul of their football team. And over a little bit of money, Nick, as compared to what money is today, they lost the spirit of their football team.
Well, one thing we did find out in St. Louis that an old coach can also be a good coach because he put that team back together. He's got Lawrence Phillips. All of a sudden, he's running north and south and playing well. I don't think the St. Louis Rams are going to be a doormat anymore.
Well, he's fired up.
Mr. Positive this year.
I'm really impressed. Thank you very much. You know, each year, NFL Films provides us with the best highlights. This year is no exception. A good example is the Denver-Kansas City game. Let's listen to what former Chief Neil Smith had to say.
After 9 years with the Chiefs, defensive end Neil Smith opened the 1997 season wearing the Denver Broncos' new colors.
Yeah, big fella, don't be over behind me. Don't behind me. Don't be behind me. All right, buddy.
Come on, man.
All right, baby.
Welcome to the good side.
You know that's right. Hey, the same did me for 9 years. All right. If you have to. How you doing? All day, baby. All day.
All day, the Chiefs challenged number 90 with double-team blocking.
That's right. Keep two in there. Keep two in there.
Sometimes they even attacked in threes.
No. What's up, home? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. They take 3 of them to block me, baby. That's all right, though. They take 3 of y'all.
That's right. That's what
You know. You take 3, baby. It takes 3. That's it, Marty. That's 3 of them.
For Chiefs head coach Marty Schottenheimer, the problem was that while 2 or more neutralized Smith, other Broncos defenders were beating single blocks. Kansas City was unable to score a touchdown against the inspired Broncos defense.
Get it out. Come on, get it out. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
Another mile-high sellout came expecting to see John Elway air it out, and they wouldn't be disappointed. Rod Smith's 78-yard catch and carry came up short of a touchdown, and Denver eventually had to settle for one of Jason Elam's 4 field goals. Terrell Davis rushed for 101 yards and scored the game's only touchdown. Any hopes for a Chiefs second-half comeback were drowned out by the Denver defense.
Instead of open the floodgate, remember, open the gate, open the dam, open it up now. Let's get it. He's going. Don't get scared, baby. Don't get scared. You know it's coming. You know it was coming.
Denver beat Kansas City 19-3 and earned a measure of revenge for at least one old pro.
Take it back home, baby. Yeah, baby, dog. You know what I'm saying? I feel real good about this one. Real good. Woo!
While some fans in Memphis showed down-home hospitality by coming out to greet their new neighbors, most folks were wary of the interlopers from Texas. But despite this tepid reception at the half-filled Liberty Bowl, Steve McNair was red hot.
Got Sanders open. He catches it for the touchdown. Touchdown.
The Oilers had a 13-0 lead before the Raiders finally woke up. As promised, the Raiders returned to their trademark vertical attack.
Brings it deep over the middle. He's got Brown open. He's got it. He's gone. He's to the 15, to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown.
Tim Brown and newly acquired Jeff George quickly propelled the Raiders to a 14-13 lead. But as the Raiders ruled the skies, the ground belonged to Eddie George, who was simply unstoppable.
Touchdown to the 25, to the 20. He breaks away. He's down to the 5. He goes in. Touchdown, Eddie George.
George rushed for a career-high 216 yards. His touchdown and two-point conversion did, however, set up another Raider tradition, the last-second comeback.
Back to throw. Jeff George fires into the end zone. Touchdown.
Brown's 16-yard grab evened matters, but in overtime, Tennessee ended things once and for all.
Now
will shoot a 33-yarder. There's a placement. There's the kick on the way. And it is good. And the Oilers win. The Oilers win. A 30
Tennessee's victory begins the uphill battle to win over new fans. Next week, Jeff Fisher's Oilers travel to Miami. Last Sunday, Jimmy Johnson's Dolphins endured a rare off day from quarterback Dan Marino.
Takes the snap, sets up, looks, has time, throws one upfield. Intercepted by Elijah Alexander. 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Elijah.
With Marino showing his age, Miami relied upon its young defense. Second-year running back Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's second-quarter run gave the Dolphins the lead for good. The Dolphins have a team filled with young talent, and this week it must gear up to stop another budding star, Tennessee's Eddie George.
So the Dolphins win and host Tennessee this Sunday, and they'll have to contend with Eddie George, who ran for over 200 yards last week and was selected the AFC Offensive Player of the Week. Eddie joins us now on NFL Crosstalk. And Eddie, thank you very much for being part of our program. You had a terrific week last week, but I want to ask you about the Heat. Here are the Raiders. You know, they were wilting out there. Matter of fact, in the second half, Napoleon Kaufman couldn't play because of heat exhaustion. Here you are, a big guy, 6'3", 232 pounds. How were you able to handle the heat?
Well, we practiced it all week long, or all training camp, so we were kind of used to it. But it definitely had its effect on us. But, you know, I guess we just carried through, you know, mentally.
Eddie, will you people have a home field advantage? Will your teammates have that crowd behind you? It seems like when you were in Houston, you didn't have what you had at Ohio State. Is that going to come along there at Tennessee?
Eventually, you know, I think they'll eventually come around. You know, if we continue to do our jobs and continue to win games, continue to become an attraction, they have no choice but to come out, because I think that everyone wants to be a part of something that's special.
Are you kind of glad that you got out of Houston? Do you feel better being in Tennessee?
I'm glad the situation is over. I'm glad the situation is resolved. We know where this organization is headed as far as in the future, and we have some type of stability in this organization now.
You lost a good football player last week in Blaine Bishop with a broken forearm. How will that affect your football team?
It's not going to affect us too much. Blaine is a great addition to our defense, but I think he's only going to be out for like a couple weeks, so we'll just have to find a way to win. We just have the train just keeps on going, and just have to just rally up the troops and keep going.
Well, that train last week ran over the Raiders, but that was last week. This time, you're going to be facing the Miami Dolphins. You think you can have as much success against this young Dolphin defenders?
It's going to be tough. You know, looking at them on film, they're very aggressive up front. You know, they go 100 miles an hour every play, every down. They're a Jimmy Johnson-type football team. And basically, we're going to go in there and play our game, do our game plan, have Steve throw, and try to establish the running game.
Sound like a veteran talking about one game at a time. Eddie, thank you very much for being part of our show.
Thank you.
Jerry, let's go to Nick and Chris and get their thoughts.
Thanks, Lenny. You know, George is a man of few words, Chris, but boy, an awful lot of yards. But down in Miami, they're not talking about Eddie George or Tennessee. They're talking about Jimmy Johnson and Willie Bench Danny Marino.
Now, I know he likes Craig Erickson, but do you really think that Jimmy Johnson's going to put Dan Marino on the bench?
You know, of all the coaches in the NFL, I think Jimmy Johnson has ice water in his veins more than any of them. This was not a wake-up call for Danny Marino. You know, Dan Marino is a guy who has so much pride. He knew he played lousy in preseason. He played lousy last week against Indianapolis. What Jimmy Johnson was telling Dan Marino and the general public was, look, Danny, if you don't play, your butt's going to get on the bench, and Erickson will play in this game.
I'll tell you who gave somebody a wake-up call. Eddie George ran right through a Raiders defense that was supposed to be very good. Big defensive line, Darrell Russell, Russell Maryland, Chester McLaughlin, just made it look easy. The only thing I don't like about Tennessee right now is Steve McNair just doesn't quite look ready for prime time. As long as he was rolling out or play action, whatever, then he was okay. But if he ever had to just drop back and throw the football, I don't think he could win the game. That's the reason I like Miami.
And I'll tell you what, Chris, don't underestimate that Dolphin defense. With Jason Taylor, a rookie, and Derek Rogers, the outside linebacker. These guys are fast and they can hit you. That defense will play well. I like Miami. What about you guys?
Well, Jerry, they both like Miami. How about you?
Well, I got to disagree with him, especially Chris Collinsworth.
Especially Chris?
Yeah, I think Steve McNair is ready to play, and I think when Miami comes and jams the lineup trying to stop Eddie George, look for a former Ohio State player, Chris Sanders, to make the big catches, and I look for Tennessee to win this thing.
Eddie George was a Heisman Trophy Award winner at Ohio State, and he's playing up to that type of billing. He had a great game against Oakland, but there was another George in that game, Jeff George, a quarterback of the Raiders. Phenomenal game against that defense. 3 touchdown passes, no interceptions. I look for Dan Marino to exploit that secondary, throw some touchdown passes. I look for Miami to win. Jimmy Johnson isn't the only coach that likes to play younger players. Giants head coach Jim Fassel has a lot of new faces on his team.
The Giants may have the league's youngest team, but looks can be deceiving as they grew up in a hurry against Philadelphia. Although the Eagles were flying high at times,
Gunning it down the middle for Say, who makes a tremendous catch.
for the most part, New York had them eating turf with their newfound hard-hitting defense. Quarterback Dave Brown made a rare trip to the end zone,
The end zone touchdown, Dave Brown, the quarterback draw.
while rookie Tiki Barber could be found all over the field.
Up the middle, runs left, tries to shake a tackle, does it cross midfield to the Eagle 45, still on his feet to the 40, and finally tackled by Mamula down the left sideline. What a catch by Tiki Barber!
Down by 7, Philadelphia's hopes rested on the arm of Rodney Peete.
He is firing and it is intercepted. It is picked off by Gorns down the far sideline.
He's going
Gorns
all the
at the 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. Gorns scores a touchdown.
By beating the favored Eagles, New York showed they are no longer the Giants of old, as the team and battle-scarred quarterback Dave Brown are quickly showing signs of maturing. People in Green Bay have been talking about the Packers going undefeated this year, but one of the strangest two-point conversions ever helped put them in an 8-3 hole against Chicago.
He scoops it forward into the yes, and it's a score for the Bears.
A befuddled Mike Holmgren also watched as Bears runner Raymond Harris had the best game and run of his career.
Ramon Harris, he's on his way. He might go. He's down the sidelines. I don't think they'll catch him.
But Harris's run was far too little, far too late, as last year's #1 defense dominated when it counted. Doug Evans' interception set up a Packer touchdown. Brett Favre threw for 2 scores, including one to Robert Brooks, who has made a heroic comeback from last year's knee injury.
Now goes the right side. Touchdown. Caught in the end zone by Robert Brooks.
Number 67, Bill Schultz, couldn't decide whom to block, and the result was another Green Bay touchdown.
And the ball's loose. And the Packers have a touchdown. It is picked up.
But it was a bittersweet win for the Pack as they lost 2 players to knee injuries. Cornerback Craig Newsome for the year and tight end Mark Chimura for at least a few weeks.
You can't be scared. Oh, you can't be scared. You can't be scared. Live for the non-religious guy. You can't be scared.
Okay, be physical, be tough, be smart. Let's kick some ass. Let's get soldiers on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Soldiers, this is who you are. You were brothers. I die for every one of you right now. Damn it, play like there's no tomorrow. Backers on 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's go.
Quarterback Todd Collins has the unenviable task of replacing a living legend, Jim Kelly, as the Bills' quarterback. But early on, he was hurling picture-perfect passes that would make even Kelly proud.
Touchdown. It is caught for the touchdown.
Vikings quarterback Brad Johnson was also sharp.
Right throws that way. Carter, touchdown, Vikings.
Bills defensive end Bruce Smith is simply too fast for one man to block. This game became a hard-hitting war. Buffalo double-teamed John Randall, leaving others free to pressure Collins.
Tom, I called look me, and I blocked the guy.
Who did you block? Remember the number?
The first, we're off the corner. That's who I got. I got hit from behind.
We got to get some push. We got to be able to run back inside of you.
When number 95 Bryce Pop blitz, Vikings running back Robert Smith did run inside through a huge hole.
30, 40, 50, he may go. 30, down to the 20, down to the 10, to the 5, and in for the touchdown. 78 yards. Robert Smith has just shell-shocked the Bills defense, and this crowd.
I don't know what the
Hey, don't worry about it. We're going to win this game, baby. Don't worry about it.
Minnesota's defense all but put the game away when linebacker Jeff Brady raced 30 yards for a touchdown off a Bills fumble.
5, touchdown. Brady goes in with a loose ball.
Chris Carter's second touchdown closed the curtain on the Bills, as even a defender draped all over his back couldn't stop him.
For the new guys, that's our style of football right there. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Every phase of the game, special teams, defense and offense, we were on our game, and that's really what it takes. That tells me that we did the right things in training camp. We did the right things going on the road. We challenged ourselves, and we answered the bell.
The Jets kicked off the season hoping for a big win for the Big Tuna. And while quarterback Neil O'Donnell came up small last year, he had a huge first game, including 2 touchdowns to Bantam receiver Wayne Crabette.
O'Donnell back to pass, under some pressure, finds Crabette, he's to the 20, to the 10, to the 5, touchdown. O'Donnell to Crabette, the second time those two have hooked up.
O'Donnell also threw 2 scores to Jeff Graham and finished with 5 for the day, a career high. The future for the Big Tuna and O'Donnell in the Big Apple looks, well, big. Coming up on Inside the NFL. Tampa Bay puts the hit on San Francisco, and a look back at Walter Payton, the all-time rushing leader.
While the Jets deserve the right to celebrate this week, it's been a bittersweet couple of days for Buffalo Bills' Bruce Smith. On Sunday, he agreed to a long-term contract extension. Then he got convicted of drunk driving in a Virginia court on Tuesday. Brian Burwell has the story.
In his 13th season in the National Football League, Bruce Smith continues to be one of the most compelling personalities in professional football. A unique blend of size, speed, and strength, he is arguably the greatest defensive lineman to ever play in the NFL. Yet in a career filled with exhilarating achievement, his glorious highs have often been muted by disappointment. 4 straight Super Bowls, 4 crushing defeats. One of Buffalo's most popular stars, yet Smith was once a target of racial hate mail. And this week, a day after agreeing to a contract that makes him football's highest paid defensive player, Smith was convicted of drunken driving. How disappointing, how embarrassing was that for you to be in that courtroom after one of the, after a wonderful moment like you had on Sunday?
I can't comment on that issue right now.
The conviction was a result of Smith's July 27th arrest when Virginia Beach police found him asleep at the wheel at 6:21 a.m. at an intersection in a traffic lane. Smith was given a 30-day suspended jail sentence, fined $250, and had his license suspended for a year. He was also convicted of refusing to take a breath test, which resulted in his license being suspended an additional 90 days. An October 23rd appeal date has been set.
The only logical thing that I could possibly say at this time, and I won't go into any further details, is sometimes bad things happen to good people.
Smith's attorney presented a doctor's report stating Smith suffers from apnea, a sleeping disorder, to explain why he was found asleep at the wheel. He also argued Smith's 4 knee surgeries caused him to fail a field sobriety test when he was asked to stand on one leg.
At this point in time, I can't comment on that particular issue because the matter is still ongoing.
After practice Wednesday, Smith said the value of his new 6-year contract was $28.2 million with a $6 million signing bonus, thus ending a bitter and sometimes personal negotiation.
In the midst of a negotiation, and when it gets down to the nitty-gritty, the name calling, the arguments, things of that nature, I think that feelings are going to be stepped on and sometimes hurt, and that's what happened in this negotiation.
Yet Smith clearly was deeply affected by what he and many others perceived as a lack of loyalty from Bills owner Ralph Wilson, who played hardball in these discussions.
It was personal, and I think that in some situations I got too close to the negotiations, but that's how I wanted it. I didn't want to be on the outside looking in, talking about my future.
Smith swears all the bad blood of a 21-day impasse is behind him now, and it's on to the business of reconfirming that he's just as good as his new salary indicates.
Do you regard yourself as the greatest defensive lineman to ever play the game?
I'll answer it like this. I'm not in this game to be second best to anyone.
After more than a decade of glorious highs and sad frustrations, the passion for the game still burns bright for last year's NFL Defensive Player of the Year.
Right now, I live for Sundays. The thing that I enjoy about football is it's aggressive. You can go out and kick the shit out of somebody and not have to worry about going to jail for it.
Smith's conviction could ultimately lead to a fine or suspension as a violation of the NFL's substance abuse policy. However, an NFL spokesman told us on Thursday the commissioner will wait until league attorneys review Virginia court documents before any potential disciplinary action will be taken.
Evidently, the National Football League is not finished with Bruce Smith. The worst case scenario for Bruce, he could be suspended up to 4 games and fined as much as $20,000.
You know, Lenny, I still think that most of the drug policies for the respective sports are still kind of a joke. But at least the NFL goes so far as to suspend or fine players for alcohol-related incidents. None of the other leagues do that.
Let's make this perfectly clear. Bruce Smith is going to be playing against the New York Jets this week, and the Bills, they have their hands full. Who would have thought the Jets would go up to Seattle, a team that I thought was going to be good this year, and put 41 points on the board?
And I was really surprised with the play of the defense. Last year, the Jets defense 6 times gave up double-digit leads in the second half of ball games, and they almost pitched a shutout. And maybe as surprising was the play of the Buffalo Bills defense. They were supposed to be one of the best defenses in the entire league, and they were really a joke against Minnesota. That's the reason I like the New York Jets here, Jerry.
You like the Jets, and he's talking about their defense. What makes their defense is the Jets' offense. No turnovers for the whole football game. Back to Parcells football. And only 5 penalties. That's what makes their defense look good. Plus, they got an outside linebacker named Marvin Jones. He set the tempo last week, got after the quarterback early. In fact, knocked Freeze out for about a month or 2. And he'll do the same thing this week. The Jets will beat the Buffalo Bills.
You know, Buffalo gave up 34 points last week against the Minnesota Vikings. And here is a Jets team that's spreading the ball around. Their wide receivers, Johnson, 6 catches. We got Graham and Gerbett, 2 touchdown receptions. The tight ends even get involved in the act because they had 4 catches and 1 touchdown. I look for that offense to beat the Buffalo Bills.
Well, maybe Marv Levy should have retired with Jim Kelly because all he has out there now is a remnant of a great Buffalo team. The only shot Buffalo has is if Thurman Thomas takes the leadership of that team and really starts to run the football himself and gain over 100 yards. I know he is trying to do that. We saw it in a film clip. He's trying to extol his teammates. But look at when Eric Moles, who was supposed to be the heir apparent to Andre Reed, has 1 catch for 4 yards, believe me, they're in trouble. I like the Jets.
You know, earlier you said he was on a positive note. How long did it take? He is back. I knew he'd come back. Hey, while Bill Parcells proved once again that he is one of the greatest coaches, his former players in New England proved that they didn't need Bill around to dominate a football game.
Last Sunday, while the New England Patriots opened the offensive faucet, new Charger head coach Kevin Gilbride saw his attack reduced to a trickle. As their only score, though spectacular, proved meaningless.
Fires down the left side. It is a one-handed catch. Breaking inside the 10 to the 5 and a touchdown. Wow, what a grab that one.
Quarterback Drew Bledsoe threw 4 first-half touchdown passes, including this beauty to Terry Glenn.
Into the end zone. Touchdown! Terry Glenn! Oh, Drew's carving him up.
Freed from the lash of Bill Parcells, Bledsoe buggy whipped his passes through a sad sack secondary and led the defending AFC champs to a convincing victory. While the Chargers wilted like hothouse flowers, Falcon head coach Dan Reeves and Lion head coach Bobby Ross sought to nurture their new teams in the air-conditioned Silverdome. However, no one sprouted taller than Herman Moore.
Fires it left sideline for Herman Moore. Got it. 15 to the 10. Moore, touchdown Lions.
The Falcons rallied behind quarterback Chris Chandler and wide receiver Michael Haynes. But it was Chandler's fumble that opened up the game for the Lions and linebacker Stephen Boyd, number 57.
Loose ball. Lions get it. They make score. Stephen Boyd off to the races. Touchdown. Holy mackerel. Chandler lost it. Boyd picked it up and took it to Bader.
Barry Sanders wasn't worth the plug nickel Sunday, but Herman Moore looked like a million, catching 7 passes for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Lions capped their 28-17 victory on Reggie Brown's interception.
Fires. Kicked off. This will be a touchdown. Reggie Brown. Touchdown Lions.
While the Lions' first act was a smash hit, 2 old friends in new places reprised Meet Me in St. Louis. Dick Vermeil and Mike Ditka have new teams, but Iron Mike Saints played a familiar, sad refrain. Vermeil likes a balanced offense, and he got it behind the passing of Tony Banks and the running of Lawrence Phillips.
Here goes Conwell in motion. Handoff. Phillips driving for the goal line, fighting to the outside, dragging him in for the touchdown for St. Louis.
With the Saints being hornswoggled, that old arch-conservative Mike Ditka plucked a radical page from his playbook.
Here's the kickoff, and it's another deep one by Wilkins.
He'll bring this one out.
Gulliford from 2 yards deep. We're going to run the reverse.
Fake
no,
reverse.
Gulliford's going to keep it up the far sideline.
Go.
One man to beat. Eric Gulliford in a foot race from the line. Touchdown, Saints.
Eric Gulliford's 102-yard touchdown gave the Saints hope. Hope which was quickly dashed on a stunning play by tight end Ernie Conwell.
Pocket throws, dumps it to Conwell. Conwell to the 30. He's to the 25. He's got a first down to the 15. He's struggling to the 10. Ernie Conwell with a sensational effort. He's to the 5-yard line. Touchdown, Ernie Conwell.
But the day belonged to Phillips, a rookie flop who rushed for 125 yards and 3 touchdowns. While Vermeil's brand of tough love has worked miracles with Phillips, there was no tender loving care for miracle maker Jerry Rice in Tampa Bay. In fact, the entire game with the Bucs became a total nightmare. Quarterback Steve Young suffered his 3rd concussion in 10 months, and torn knee ligaments took out Rice for the season and maybe the 49ers as well. The 49er defense played valiantly, but surrendered the game's only touchdown and the game winner in the 4th quarter. Young gamely returned as the savior, but suffered a beating as the swarming Buck defense registered 7 sacks. The defeat and the loss of Rice will test both the 49ers' heart and their survival skills this week against St. Louis.
So the Niners really have their work cut out for them. They travel to St. Louis without Steve Young, without Jerry Rice. Kevin Green has a broken toe. He is questionable, but they have beaten this team 13 times in a row. If they're going to make it 14 in a row, they're going to do it with a new quarterback. It's either going to be Braum or Druckenmiller.
I don't think it matters who's the quarterback is, Lenny, because the offensive tackles for the 49ers don't block anyway. Henshaw and Scraffer last week, they got their butts whipped by Warren Sapp and Brad Culpepper. 7 sacks against them. This week here, they go against a good young defensive end by the name of Kevin Carter. And Leslie O'Neal goes back on the artificial surface, and this guy can really fly as a defensive end. I think it's going to be a long afternoon for those quarterbacks.
Well, for the Rams, they also have discovered a running game. Lawrence Phillips, over 100 yards last season. The Rams couldn't run it at all. And you look at this season and say, well, maybe it's Orlando Pace, but he only played about 12 plays in the ball game. But remember, he ran against the Saints and not the San Francisco 49ers with Dana Stubblefield and Bryant Young. A much tougher assignment this week, Jerry.
And Steve Mariucci, on 3rd down and long, he's added 4 wide receivers. Nick's mentioned 7 sacks. How about going against Bud Carson, the guy that's devised all these blitzing schemes? They'll be blitzing them coming off the bus. Their protection problems are going to have a real problem with these 4 wide receivers.
Who's the quarterback going to throw to with the 49ers? You know, Brent Jones, I didn't mention him. He's hurting as well. He's one of the favorite targets for Steve Young. Now they got J.J. Stokes. Last week they threw the ball once to him. It bounced off his chest, so I don't think he'll get too many. Terrell Owens, he made 1 catch for 12 yards. That means that Garrison Hurst is going to have to carry the load and maybe turnovers to help him, but I don't think it's going to happen. I like the Rams.
You know something? I think the 49ers have a great strength in their secondary. They're just terrific. But this week here, Isaac Bruce may come off the injury list. He's going to join Torrance Small, Eddie Keddison. They're going to spread that 49er defense just too much. I like the Rams.
You guys have a short memory. Remember last year we were writing off the 49ers. Everybody said they're finished.
You
they
were
go into
too.
St. Louis. I was saying all the same things, correct. This year I've learned my lesson. The 49ers are simply a better football team than are the Rams. Garrison Hurst gives them the running game. San Francisco's winning.
I disagree with you on that running game. They're physical and they're tough on defense, talking about the 49ers. But on offense, I don't see any physical toughness other than William Floyd. He's a hard-nosed guy. He could beat this team up. But they give it to him twice a game, and for that reason, I'm going with the Rams.
That's good reasoning. I like his reasoning, don't you? Hey, San Francisco wasn't the only contending team to have a lousy first weekend. In Pittsburgh, things didn't go exactly as planned.
Last Sunday, the Steel City's rough and tumble image found its voice in the sound and fury of pro football.
Hey, fellas, let's start her off right, baby. This is number 1, 1997. Inside the 20. 1, 3, 1, 2, 3. Execute on 3. Execute on 3. 1, 2, 3. Execute.
Travel back. Take the ball.
During the scoreless first quarter, it was hats off to the defenses, and Pittsburgh figured to be strengthened by the return of linebacker Greg Lloyd, who missed all of 1996 with an injury. The number 95, a trash-talking martial arts expert, saw the Cowboys run off big gains. He also heard them run off at the mouth.
Keep talking, Greg. You're having a great day. Oh, that karate is really helping you. You ought to get in the playbook.
Let's not play that game. Keep our game fast. You see those big guys in front of you starting to get tired? Tell them to pick it up. So whenever you see me, just pick it up. That's what we're talking about. Pick it up. Let's not get complacent.
Get after them. We keep getting after them. We keep getting after them until they break. We keep, all right? They won't break. But you just keep.
But Deion Sanders proved that the Cowboys are a team that bends rather than breaks. After Deion's crash landing, Dallas took off, and they were piloted to near perfection by Troy Aikman. Aikman, who threw only 12 scoring passes a season ago, connected for 4 of them on the new campaign's inaugural Sunday. Number 83, Anthony Miller, accounted for the first score, but Michael Irvin forcefully symbolized the revitalized Cowboys. The playmaker caught 7 passes for 153 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Pump fake going way downfield for Michael Irvin, who separates at the 5. Touchdown, Dallas. Yes, sir! Troy Aikman looks right, comes back left, throws the fade for Michael Irvin. Jump ball time. Irvin catches the ball. Touchdown. Irvin out-jumped the defender.
You got to make them write a check that their ass can't cash.
The Steelers couldn't cash much of anything, and their offense looked especially bankrupt. After a stellar preseason, Cordell Stewart was unable to find his groove in a game that actually counted. Still, it's far too early to consider Stewart a slash in the pan or to see him duplicating Jason Garrett's role in Dallas.
Left, tight off, jet, scat right, 525, 8 post out.
When Aikman connected with Darryl Johnston for the Cowboys' final touchdown, it was clear that Dallas was back with a vengeance. The Cowboys' victory, however, was embodied by Michael Irvin, a player supposedly on his last legs, but who proved that those legs are still capable of striding with a strong sense of pride and purpose.
Good start, baby.
Just like I told him. Good job. He's over the hill. He's through. He done hit the wall. Ain't worth it. Magic Michael.
Way to go, my soldiers. My soldiers. My soldiers, we go to war.
Forever.
We go to war.
Forever. Forever. We fight anyway. Good job, baby.
As a new season dawned in Carolina, the Panthers' perfect record at Ericsson Stadium was entrusted to backup quarterback Steve Berline, who was starting in place of the injured Kerry Collins. Despite a scoring pass to Wesley Walls, Berline didn't find many open airways throughout the night. Washington starter Gus Frerotte also struggled, completing just 10 of 27 passes. And though he found Leslie Shepard for a score, the Redskins relied on the running of Terry Allen to power their offense. Allen rolled to 141 yards and 2 touchdowns despite suffering a broken thumb in the second quarter. The injury should keep him out of this week's game in Pittsburgh. With the pain of last year's 4-12 season behind them, Raven fans hope to feast on better times in 1997. But these folks might get a little crabby if their team can improve on last year's worst-ranked defense. Jaguars quarterback Rob Johnson made his first NFL start in place of the injured Mark Brunell and looked very Brunell-like as he guided his team to an early 14-0 lead. With Johnson, the Jacksonville offense didn't miss a beat as he completed 20 of 24 passes for nearly 300 yards.
Lofting it into the end zone. He's got Jimmy Smith who makes the grab. Touchdown!
But Ravens quarterback Vinny Testaverde has also become capable of putting up impressive numbers, and he picked up right where he left off last season.
Back to throw. Throwing deep downfield for Lewis. Jermaine is out there. He's got it. Touchdown!
Testaverde threw for more than 300 yards and 3 scores to help the Ravens race ahead. Michael Jackson's touchdown helped give Baltimore a 27-21 lead. But the hero of the day would be the Jaguars' gutty Rob Johnson. Johnson withstood the improved Ravens pass rush, and despite leaving the game twice with a badly sprained ankle, he returned to throw the game-winning score in the fourth quarter.
Quick drop, has time, turns, fires, looks for Jimmy Smith, makes the catch. He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Jaguars!
Jimmy Smith's second touchdown of the day capped a remarkable win for the Jaguars. Johnson's courageous performance made for an unforgettable debut. As for the Ravens, this week they will face another quarterback who proved capable of a big comeback in Cincinnati's Jeff Blake. Last week, Blake and the Bengals found themselves trailing the Cardinals 21-3 as number 30 Leland McElroy scored one of 3 Arizona rushing touchdowns.
He's on the 10, he's on the 5, he scores!
Blake and his team finally woke up in the fourth quarter. Kajana Carter's catch and run set up one of his 2 scores to cut the Cardinals' lead to 21-16. After an Arizona fumble gave the Bengals the ball back with just over a minute to play and no timeouts, Blake went to work on a 63-yard desperation drive. In the final seconds, Blake delivered the winning score.
Blake on 3rd and 2 for the 6. Throws up. Yeah! Touchdown! Pickens! Carl Pickens and the Bengals have the lead! Wow! Unbelievable!
The Bengals' comeback ability may be tested again this week against the high-powered but all too vulnerable Baltimore Ravens.
Jeff Blake is just one of the many young quarterbacks asserting themselves in the NFL, but on Sunday, we'll have a matchup for the ages as we see in this week's Inside Update. When Denver travels to Seattle this weekend, Warren Moon and John Elway will be the quarterbacks. They are a combined 78 years old and have thrown for over 89,000 yards. Moon gets a start for Seattle because John Freese broke his thumb. Stan Humphries dislocated his shoulder last Sunday, so San Diego will turn to Jim Everett for Sunday's game in New Orleans. Everett, the New Orleans starter the last 3 years, was cut in May by new Saints coach Mike Ditka, so Everett will use that as motivation. Carolina Panthers have brought back linebacker Carlton Bailey. Bailey was let go February the 1st, but after injuries to Lamar Lathan and Sam Mills, Bailey was re-signed. And now with more inside information, let's go to Chris Collinsworth and welcome back Gary Myers. This is the 9th year that Gary has burned up the phone lines for Inside the NFL.
All right, Lenny, thank you very much. Gary, I'm going to put you right to work. San Francisco, the story this week in the National Football League. Start off with Steve Young. Is he going to be able to play?
He's definitely not playing Sunday in St. Louis, Chris. In fact, he's not even expected to dress for the game. The 49ers are being very conservative here in their decision because Steve had 2 concussions last year, then he had another one in the first game this year. They say they want to be concerned about what's going to happen the rest of the season. It's a long season. 49ers President Corin Policy said if it was a playoff game this week, Steve would be playing.
But is it safe for Steve Young to play? Isn't that the real issue here?
Well, you know, Chris, in the offseason, he had extensive testing because of the concussions, and it did not show any permanent damage, and that was encouraging to him. He got a clean bill of health. But listening to Steve talk now, you really get the impression that this last concussion from Sunday really kind of hit home with him, and it seems like he's really concerned now about what happens in his post-football life. And you just hear it in his voice that, you know, maybe, you know, this stuff is starting to wake him up a little bit, that it's pretty serious.
How about Jerry Rice, the guy that never missed a game? Looks like he's out for the season.
Well, not according to Jerry necessarily. Now, I spoke with Jim Steiner, who's Jerry's agent, and he said that before and after the surgery on Monday, which was extensive reconstructive surgery, that Jerry said he plans to be back in December. The 49ers think it's not necessarily realistic. They think he'll be back next year, but they're not putting him on injured reserve. They're holding open the roster spot just in case.
Jimmy Johnson shocked the world this past week when he said he might be willing to put Dan Marino on the bench. Is that realistic? Could that happen?
Well, you know, speaking with Jimmy, I think that it is. That he claims that, you know, he really likes Craig Erickson, thinks he can help the team, and if Dan is not 100% physically, if he's not sharp like he wasn't last week, that, you know, maybe he would put Erickson in, but he did say it would probably just be for a couple of series, and then he would put Marino back in the game. But, you know, Marino is 35 years old, and I think everybody would admit he's not the same player he was 10 years ago.
The Washington Redskins got off to a great start, beating Carolina in Carolina. They did it without Sean Gilbert. Is he going to continue this holdout?
This is the last holdout, Chris. Every rookie is signed, every veteran is signed, and this one could stand the test of time. The Redskins are willing to pay him $4 million a year, which would make him the 3rd highest paid defensive lineman in the league. Right now, they're not close. The problem here is he's the franchise player. Gilbert wants to be paid as if he was an unrestricted free agent. The Redskins are saying that if they can't sign him this year, they'll put the franchise tag back on him next year. Gilbert's agent is saying if they do that, they'll just continue to sit out until they can get a contract.
All right, Gary, thank you very much.
Okay, Chris.
Well, we have a special Where Are They Now for you this week. Walter Payton was one of the guys that I really enjoyed watching. As a matter of fact, there was a time when Forrest Gregg, my head football coach in Cincinnati, made the entire Bengals team come into a room and watch film of the way that Walter Payton played the game. And our own Kurt Gowdy takes a look back at the man they call Sweetness.
I played the game mad. I don't know, it was like when I put that uniform on, I was a totally different individual. If somebody blocks you, you're mad. If somebody knocks the ball down, you're mad. If you don't run hard enough to get the first down, you're mad. And you turn that madness into energy, that anger, and you just go from there.
Walter Payton ran through defenses for the Chicago Bears for 13 years. A mediocre team early in his career turned contender overnight when Mike Ditka was hired as the head coach.
Mike Ditka came in, and first thing he said, you know, when he took over in the meeting was that, you know, we're going to the Super Bowl.
The Bears reached their goal 2 years later, defeating the Patriots in Super Bowl 20. Along the way, Walter reached a milestone of his own.
Walter needs 2 to break the record. Quick pitch to Walter, looking for the record. Walter Payton becomes the National Football League.
When I started playing the game, Jim Brown's record was never in one of the things that was one of my goals. My goal was to go beyond that. I wanted to rush for 20,000 yards. I only got 16,000 and something, but, you know, that was my goal.
Walter has remained close to football following retirement 10 years ago. He joined the St. Louis NFL partnership in 1989, but his dream of owning an NFL franchise was put on hold when Jacksonville was awarded a team over St. Louis.
Before it's over with, I'm going to own an NFL football team. I can't say where, and it might be sooner than I chose to think, but it's going to happen. And there are some things that are in the works now, but I can't talk about. But it's one of those things that if it happens, fine.
Ownership would not be a new concept for Walter. After briefly racing Trans Ams and Formula 2000 cars, he's now co-owner on the Indy kart circuit. He's learned that auto racing, like football, is not so easy.
We went in and we thought we had the best equipment, and we found out that there were major flaws within our equipment, and we had a major setback until we had to change equipment right in the middle of the season. And when we did that, you know, we've had great results in the last couple of races.
Walter is also the proud owner of a 150-year-old roundhouse train station near his home outside Chicago. He renovated the 80,000 square foot restaurant complex, which today boasts a microbrewery, the Walter Payton Museum, and hosts many charity events and fundraisers.
Thank you, sweetheart. We give to the kids, and we make, because the future is the kids. And if we don't take care of the kids, you know, regardless of how big you are, or how smart you are, or what you have, you know, if you don't have that piece of heart that you've done something for others who've a little bit less fortunate than you, you're nothing. You're not a man. You're not a woman. You're not a human being.
Walter Payton's rushing record, like all records, may one day be broken, but his approach to life should be a model for all young people wondering what it takes to make it in sports and in life.
Sweetness, Walter Payton, he had a dream of rushing for 20,000 yards. And I think if he had a good offensive line when he was younger, he would have got that. But everybody has a dream. Super Bowl 32 is coming up January in San Diego. All of these teams want to win it. Now, your predictions, Jerry, who is going to represent the AFC and NFC, and who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Well, I would have picked Jacksonville in the AFC, but injuries, those both quarterbacks now out, so I'm going with the New England Patriots to win it because they got all the talent. In the NFC, everybody likes Green Bay. I think Dallas is going to make a comeback. It's going to be the Cowboys in there, and New England wins the whole thing.
Whoa. How'd the Colts do last year, by the way, that you picked? Never mind.
Well,
I like Denver, I like Green Bay, and I like Green Bay to win the whole thing. That they're the two dominant teams in either league. I think fairly easy choice this year.
Well, I like the New England Patriots in the AFC, and I also like the Green Bay Packers in the NFC. And when it comes all down to it, Favre will win it again.
Dallas Cowboys, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to be New England, the Cowboys, winning it once again.
He didn't pick the Chiefs.
No.
That's the first right there.
Be able to go back to
Marty
Kansas
won't
City.
talk to you.
You know, we didn't have a show last week, but we did make our picks, and here's how we fared. Mr. Nick Bonacani out on top for the first week.
Surprise.
Surprise. Now let's pick this week's games. Jerry and I think Carolina will win in Atlanta. Chris and Nick like the Falcons. My three friends agree that Cincinnati will go 2-0, but I like Baltimore and Vinny Testaverde. Denver will win in Seattle as the Broncos vow they will not take Seattle lightly. Green Bay will win in Philadelphia and defeat their former draft pick, Ty Detmer. We all like Minnesota to go into Soldier Field and beat the Bears. The Chargers hopefully will be more competitive this week, but the New Orleans Saints will get their first victory of the season under Mike Ditka. Jerry likes Washington to get past the Steelers. The rest of us like Pittsburgh. We all agree Dallas will handle Arizona. And Kansas City has dominated the Raiders in recent years, but we all like Oakland in Oakland on Monday Night Football. Now for the rest of the games in more detail. We're going to start with you, Nick. We've got New England at Indianapolis.
Well, you know, this is a typical look-forward type of a game for the New England Patriots. They want to look beyond Indy because they've got the Jets coming up to New England the following week. This is one that could really be an upset, but I still like New England.
You talk about New England.
Yes.
New England's going to come out. They got a defensive coordinator, Steve Sidwell, brand new guy. And Harbaugh last week got chased all over. This week, they're going to swarm and chase him. This is going to be a laugher. Look for New England to trump them.
You know why they were chasing after him? Because Tarek Glenn and Adam Meadows, two rookies on that offensive line, just simply did not get it done. I like the Patriots as well.
You know, you talked about Harbaugh. Can you imagine a guy as tough as he is leaving because of exhaustion? He won't leave because of exhaustion, but New England's going to win that football game. Jerry, how about the Giants at Jacksonville?
If you do the Jacksonville game, I get to do that this week, and you start studying the film, I like all their players. They've got players. Now, they've lost a couple of quarterbacks, but they got talent. They got a fullback, Ty Halleck, that was cut by the Detroit Lions, retired, comes back, and he even plays good. Basili, Searcy, and you keep Natron Means. You got to stay with Jacksonville. They could win the Super Bowl if the quarterback comes back.
I'm going to tell you what, Rob Johnson showed me something last week. His fill-in, he sprained his ankle early in the ball game, came back, and was absolutely brilliant despite of it. My guess is that kid is so tough, he'll play again this week, and I like Jacksonville.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm not a name dropper, guys.
Yes,
but I was,
you are.
No. I was talking to Rush Limbaugh earlier today.
But he's not a name dropper.
No.
He's got his tie on.
And this is Rush's pick. Rush says that Jacksonville, the humidity, the temperature, the fact that Jacksonville knows how to play down there, and the Giants are coming in there, they're going to wilt in the fourth quarter. He likes the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, Rush, I'll go along with you on this one. I'll take Jacksonville.
Hey, Rush knows baseball because he used to work for the Kansas City Royals, but I don't know about football. I disagree with him. You know, Dave Brown apparently is a much better quarterback now that he's under the tutelage of head coach Jim Fassel, but I like Jacksonville. Tampa Bay's at Detroit, Chris.
And Scott Mitchell really didn't play all that well. Really no one on that Detroit offense did last week. Barry Sanders, not much of a factor. But Scott Mitchell was coming off of a groin injury in the preseason, really didn't play that much. Think he'll be much sharper this week. I like the Lions.
You know, Warren Sapp and Brad Culpepper, we mentioned them earlier in the show. These guys here obviously have made an impact. Sapp said he'd like to have 10 sacks this year. Well, he had 2.5 sacks last week. He may have 10 before September is over. I like Tampa Bay.
Well, you know, Detroit's defense sacked Chandler 4 times and forced 3 turnovers last week. Their defense is getting better, and I can't imagine that Barry Sanders is not going to improve this week. I like Detroit. Jerry, how about you?
Bobby Ross. Come on, Bobby Ross. Forget the I formation. Barry Sanders is tripping over the fullback. I think Bobby Ross will go back to the one-back set, and he'll get the big Barry Sanders running again. And you got to look at Johnny Morton. He can't drop 3 passes again. Detroit, 2-0. The city's going to go wild.
Hey, who told you to make that pick? A movie star? Any of your car drivers?
I don't know anybody. Nobody talks to me.
Usually we make our own, but, you know, Nick has his own way.
Yeah, talking about name dropping, this is the guy that's best of everybody. Hey, that's our show for this week. Remember, Inside the NFL premieres each Thursday evening at 11 p.m. If you miss any part of it, catch it again Fridays at 7 p.m. and Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern and Pacific. And check us out on the web at HBO.com. And once you're there, click on the Inside the NFL icon to make your picks each week. I don't know why they offered the viewers an opportunity to pick against us. They probably won't get any takers because we are so good.
Yeah, sure.
I am just sick and tired of having people come up to me and say, you guys are terrible picking those games.
They're right about Jerry.
Well, that
No
would
one's
be
ever
true.
said that to me.
No, that's true. Take your shot, HBO.com.
Take your shot, and we'll see you again next week on HBO's Inside the NFL. Boxing After Dark returns this Saturday, September the 6th, with a doubleheader featuring Olympic medalist Floyd Mayweather, then the super bantamweight champion Daniel Zaragoza. That's live Saturday night, 11 Eastern and Pacific.
Come on, Marty. Come on. Come on. Come on, Marty. Come on with it.
Celebrating 25 years as the network of champions.